Hello everyone, today we will see one of the important provisions of Hindu Marriage Act 1955, that is conditions of Hindu marriage. So this act is a personal law, so it is applicable only for Hindus. So when two Hindus are getting married, they have to satisfy certain conditions that are prescribed in this section to make the marriage valid. And also in this section, there are certain conditions, and if the conditions are violated, it will attract even the penal provisions of IPC. And also there are certain punishment in this act if it contravenes some conditions. So let's see what are the conditions listed out here and how to interpret them. Let's get started. Section 5 of the Hindu Marriage Act 1955 states that if any two Hindus are performing a marriage, the conditions which are listed out in this section has to be fulfilled. And section 5 consists of 5 subsections, and each subsection tells about a condition that we are going to see in detail. So section 5 and 5 conditions. So easy to remember. First one is monogamy. Second condition is about mental capacity. Third, majority. Fourth is about prohibited relationship. And fifth is about Sapinda Relationship. Now let's see the first condition that is given in subsection 1, and this subsection 1 deals with monogamy. It has to be read along with section 17 of Hindu Marriage Act. So what it states is neither party has a spouse living at the time of marriage. So during the time of marriage, he or she shouldn't have any spouse living at that time. So if it contravenes this provision, the marriage is said to be void according to section 17. Even section 17 prescribes punishment for bigamy. So whoever involves in bigamy, then section 494 IPC or section 495 IPC will get attracted. Section 494 of IPC states that when a person involves in bigamy, he will undergo imprisonment which may extend to 7 years and also liable to fine. Section 495 states that if a person hides or conceals his previous marriage to whom he subsequently married, then he will undergo imprisonment which may extend to 10 years and also liable to fine. So in this section 495, there is a concealment of previous marriage to the subsequently married wife or husband. So if we see the section 494 IPC, there is a proviso given in this section. So this section will not get attracted if a person is legally divorced or the previous marriage spouse is absent continuously for 7 years, or if he or she is not alive, then in that case this provision will not get attracted. So the only difference between section 494 and 495 IPC is in 494 there is no concealment of previous marriage, but in section 495 there is a concealment of previous marriage to the person whom he is subsequently married. So that's why it is elevating the punishments from 7 years to 10 years. Now let's see the second condition that is mentioned in subsection 2. It mainly talks about the mental capacity, and this has to be read along with section 12 of HMA Act. So in subsection 2, what it tells about is it mainly deals with insanity and unsoundness of mind. So when a person cannot give consent due to unsoundness of mind, or even if he is capable of giving consent but unfit for marriage and the procreation of children, or if he undergoes any recurrent attacks of insanity, the marriage is said to be voidable according to section 12(1)(b). So if any person is getting married with any of these conditions, at the option of the party, he can make the marriage either valid or void according to section 12(1)(b). Next, we will see the third condition in subsection 3. It has to be read along with section 18A. Section 18A is the punishment section. Subsection 3 tells about the age of bridegroom and bride. Bridegroom should have completed 21 years and bride should have completed at least 18 years for the valid marriage. If anyone violates this provision, he will undergo imprisonment which may extend to 2 years rigorous imprisonment, or fine which may extend to 1 lakh rupees, or both imprisonment and fine. Condition number 4, which is given in subsection 4, it talks about the prohibited relationship, and the punishment section is section 18B. So this prohibited relationship is defined under section 3G of HMA Act, and under section 3G it tells about certain degrees of prohibited relationship. So subsection 4 tells that there is a proviso that if custom or usage permits under the degrees of prohibited relationship, then there is a exception for this rule. So let's see some of the examples of prohibited relationship. Under section 3G, it says a person cannot marry a lineal descendant or ascendant. So a daughter cannot marry her father. Similarly, the person cannot marry her granddaughter or grandson. Similarly, a person cannot marry the wife of lineal ascendant or descendant. So a son cannot marry his stepmother. Similarly, a person cannot marry his daughter-in-law or son-in-law. And he see here, a person cannot marry wife of the brother, but sometimes it happens. So in custom or usage, we can get an exception. So here, uncle and niece. In South India, we have the custom of following marrying a maternal uncle. So this is also comes under the exception. So here aunt and nephew, one such example, and here one such example is children of two sisters are falling under the degrees of prohibited relationship and they shouldn't get married. So these are some of the examples of prohibited relationship and they are not permitted to get married. Now let's see the last condition that is mentioned in subsection 5, which is Sapinda relationship. So Sapinda relationship is defined under section 3F of HMA Act and the punishment section is section 18B. So subsection 5 has to be read along with section 18B. So there is an exception in section 5. Custom or usage allows to get marry within Sapinda relationship, then they are allowed to do so. So what is meant by Sapinda relationship, we will see in detail. When two person or Sapintas, then there should be a common ancestor as shown in this diagram, and in the mother side, let's say M1, M2, M3, M4 or the lineal descendants of the common ancestor, and in the father side, let's say F1, F2, F3, F4 and 5 and F6. So when we calculate the degrees, we have to include the common ancestor as well. So the common ancestor will constitute the first degree. So M1 second degree, M2 third degree, M4 fourth degree and M3 fourth degree and M4 is fifth degree. Similarly, F1, F2, F3, F4, F5, F6, it has to be calculated. It comes to 7 degrees. So until 5 degrees from father side and until 3 degrees in mother side, it is said to be Sapinta relationship. So when a person falls under this degree, then they are not allowed to get married. So here in this picture, M2 and F4 are not allowed to marry because they are falling under the Sapinta relationship, but M3 and F5 are allowed to get married because they are outside the Sapinta relationship, because M3 is 4 degree and F5 is 6 degrees, which is not the Sapinta relationship, so they can get married. Now let's see few illustration that talks about the Sapinta relationship. As we already know that from father side 5 degrees and from mother side until 3 degrees it falls under Sapinta relationship. Now let's see whether S3 and D3 can get married or not. So in order to calculate the degree we need to include the common ancestor. So common ancestor is first degree and S1, D2, S3, D4 will be calculated accordingly. Similarly on the other side also we will calculate the degrees. Now let's see whether S3 and D3 can get married or not. So S3's mother, that is D2 from mother side and D3's father is S2. So it is father side. So mother side it is 3 degrees and from father side also it is 3 degrees. But father side it has to be outside the 5 degrees. So this is Sapinta relationship. So S3 and D3 cannot marry. So in another example, so let's see here. Similarly, we will calculate the degrees, and now let's see whether S3 and D3 can get married or not. So S3 mother is D2 and D3's mother is D2. So both the sides are mother side. So what happened here is so mother side until 3 degrees Sapinda relationship. So S3 and D3 are falling outside Sapinda relationship. So they can get married. So section 18b is the punishment section, which states that if anybody contravenes with subsection 4 and subsection 5, that is prohibited relationship and Sapinda relationship, then they have to undergo simple imprisonment, which may extend to 1 month, or fine, which may extend to 1000 rupees, or both imprisonment and fine. So these are the provisions. So like as I said, if anybody contravenes with class 3 of section 5, that is the majority, then they have to undergo punishment, which is mentioned in section 18a, and if they contravene with prohibited or Sapinta relationship, then they have to undergo punishment, which states it in section 18b. So these are the conditions that are given in section 5. So I hope this video is useful, and if you have any feedback, please do mention in the comment section. Thank you so much.